Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. These are the peculiar characteristics of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes. Thus the Lord ate in Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's house, and in this way Sarvabhauma's love for the Lord has become very well known. Please repeat. These are the peculiar characteristics of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes. Thus the Lord ate in Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's house. And in this way, Sarvabhauma's love for the Lord has become very well known. Purport. As stated in Shaka Nirnayamrita, Amoga Panditam Vande Sri Gaurenatma Satkritam Prema Gadgada Sandrangam Pulakakula Vigraham. I offer my obeisances unto Amoga Pandit, who was accepted by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. As a result of this acceptance, he was always merged in ecstatic love, and he manifested ecstatic symptoms such as choking of the voice and standing of the hairs on his body. Sarvabhauma Gauriye Bhojana Charita Sarvabhauma Prema Jangha Hayala Vidita. These are the peculiar characteristics of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes. Thus the Lord ate in Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's house, and in this way Sarvabhauma's love for the Lord has become very well known. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantiham Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalang Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagra Jata Sahagana Raganatan Vitangs Tang Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Lalita Shamita Shri Vishakan Vitangscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabando Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanshakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So gratitude to the management for giving me the opportunity to speak, and I seek all of your blessings, especially those of the senior devotees. Hare Krishna. And for those online as well. Hare Bol. So it's the middle of the Prabhupada Marathon, so we should all pray that the mercy of Lord Chaitanya inundates the UK and the world. We can pray for the Prabhupada Marathon soldiers, Sankirtan soldiers all over the world, that they can distribute the seed of love of God, which is in Srila Prabhupada's books. Hare Krishna. Prabhupada refers to the naked mother logic. You heard this? Nagna Matrika Nyaya. Actually, he introduces it in chapter 13 of Madhya Lila in connection with the son of King Prataparudra. So the son of King Prataparudra had a moment's association with the Lord and became a pure devotee. So Prabhupada comments you shouldn't think, well, he's not a pure devotee because he's the son of a king and he's an ordinary person. You shouldn't judge a person from what they were. You should judge them from what they are. You see? So this is known as Nagna Matrika Nyaya. And the logic is like this. One says, the mother should be naked because when she was a child, she was naked. As a baby, she was naked, therefore the mother should be naked now. It's no logic at all, right? So in the same way, we shouldn't think of Amoga as a bad person. I mean, he was, but now he's got prema. So he's got something that probably no one in this room has. He's greatly fortunate. And in today's purport, we offer, or it says, I offer my obeisances unto Amoga Pandit. Okay? So we have to be careful how we judge devotees. This whole pastime, it teaches a few things. For me, there's two particular lessons to be learned from the Amoga pastime. I will invite you to suggest what you think those lessons are. Anyone think? Yes. Okay. That's what I added, but I don't think necessarily that's there. But anyway, any other? Absolute humility. Let's talk about dangers. This pastime, yes, never criticize Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Or to broaden it out, be very, very careful of aparad, not only to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but also to the Vaishnavas. In this particular pastime, it's interesting, the Lord, he's actually acting as Bhagavan and acting at the devotee simultaneously. As a devotee, he says, it's nothing. This is valid criticism. Don't take it seriously. But as Bhagavan, Sarva Karana Karanam, the cause of all causes, he's the cause of Amoga getting cholera. So on the one hand, he's punishing Amoga as Krishna, the cause of all causes. But then as a devotee, he's teaching us to be humble. Most of them mentioned humility. He's teaching us to be humble and not take criticism seriously. In fact, this is not the first time Mahaprabhu was criticized for overeating. Ramachandra Puri also criticized Mahaprabhu for overeating. In that particular occasion, he saw some ants. He said, ants means sweetmeats. Sweetmeats means this sannyasi Chaitanya is overeating. And sannyasis are not supposed to overeat. Okay. So one lesson we learn is the seriousness of an offense. Now look how serious, cholera is it's like diarrhea, but more severe. And if it's not treated, you die from dehydration within a short period of time. So that's like a death sentence for speaking ill of somebody. Consider how blasphemy is considered so bad that you die from the words you speak. I mean, what is that? It's not even physical. Remember when Brigham Muni, the group of sages, it's in the Krishna book, they decided, we want to find out who is the supreme. So Brigham Muni was tasked with visiting Brahma, Shiva, and Narayan. Now when he visited Brahma, he committed an offense in the mind. He did not offer obeisances. And Lord Brahma was angry, but he controlled himself. Then he went to Lord Shiva and he escalated. He actually criticized him because he's hanging out in crematoriums, he's covered in ash, he's impure. This enraged Lord Shiva, and he picked up his trident, was ready to kill Brigham Muni, but his wife intervened. So that was an escalation. He went from an offense in the mind to an actual verbal offense. It's said, if you throw a stone in water, once you've thrown that stone, you can't take it back. In the same way, once you've said something, that's it. It's done. The damage is done. And words are so powerful that words can lead to not only family disputes, words can lead to wars. Harsh words can be so detrimental. So we have to be very careful what we speak. In this particular pastime, it was an offense on the platform of speech. But it's a more grave offense, and that's a physical offence, physical assault. So Brigamuni, he then went to Lord Narayan and what did he do? Kicked him on the chest. But instead of getting angry, Lord Narayan being very peaceful, very humble, he said, I'm sorry, I'm sorry I didn't properly receive you. How's your foot? My chest is very hard, you see. So from that pastime, it was concluded that Lord Narayan was the supreme of the three. So one lesson we learn is do not commit Vaishnava aparad or even aparad to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But of the two, which is more serious? Who can say? Yes. So Narottam Das Thakur says, Hari stani aparadi, tari harinam, toma stani aparadi, nahi paritran. If you commit offence to Lord Hari, you can be delivered by chanting the holy names. But if you commit an offence to the Vaishnav, there is nahi paritran, no means of deliverance. So what do you do in such a situation? What is the prescribed method? Say again? Ask forgiveness, yes. So Govinda Maharaj, he gives the example. If a thorn enters your body, it can only come out from the place that it entered. In the same way, if you offend someone, you can't expect forgiveness just from Krishna or from someone else. You have to go to that person and beg for forgiveness. Shri Shri Radha Gokulananda Ki Jai, Shri Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman Ki Jai, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Jai. So that's the seriousness of Vaishnava aparad. Now here's a question. If you hear aparad to Krishna or aparad to a Vaishnav, what should you do? Now, from reading Prabhupada's books, I've come across 6 answers. There might even be more. So I'll invite you as a group to say, what have you read in Srila Prabhupada's books, what you should do if you hear aparad? Fantastic. Cut out the tongue. And should that be applied today? Your preferred option. Thank you for your honesty. Yes. You what? Yeah.
First you try and apologize to the Vaishnava. If he doesn't accept the apologies, he's angry, then you try and serve him.
Yes.
If that doesn't work, then you just take shelter of the holy name.
This is if you're the aparadi.
Yeah.
Okay. But here's the one. What if you hear aparad?
Or you should walk away.
Yes, walk away is one example. So it said in the who's the perfect example of an aparadi in Krishna Lila? Who's the perfect example? Shishupal, yes. So he was very eloquent. He just very flowingly from the heart spoke 100 aparads non-stop coming out. And Krishna, he'd already told his mother, look, I'll accept 100 offences, but that's it. When it got to number 100, out comes the Sudarshan Chakra and lops off his head. So it said in the Bhagavatam, Nindam Bhagavata Shrinvans Tat Parasya Janasya Cha Tato Naipaiti Yasopi Yachida Sukritach Chutaha. If you hear Ninda means aparad, means blasphemy, of Krishna or his devotee, then you must, Yachada means, or Tato Naipaiti Yasopi, if you do not leave, Yachada Sukita Chutaha, you fall down. You actually have a fall down if you hear the aparad. Now this is interesting because you could say, well, it's not my fault, right? But Prabhupada actually says if you hear an aparad, your body becomes sinful. There's a sin in your body. So who's a great example of someone who heard an aparad from the Srimad Bhagavatam and who voluntarily left their body because they heard an aparad? Sati, yes. So Prabhupada explains, the body becomes impure, becomes contaminated when you hear. Now this is another example. We've had 3 examples of what you can do. You can cut out the tongue, you can leave the place, you can leave your body. Now I'm thinking of at least another 3 more. Yes, that's a very good answer. Prabhupada, and this is particularly applicable if you're a Brahmana, because the Brahmanas should have good arguments. So if you're able to, you should defeat them with argument. Any other options? There's something more serious than cutting out the tongue. Kill them, yes. So it's like, Prabhupada had one purport, he says, you should cut out their tongue, kill them, and then kill yourself. That's double measure, you know. That's like the very, you know, you can't get better than that, you know. But there's another answer I was thinking of. Okay. It's quite simple. You block your ears. So who can give me an example in the Krishna book where a group assembly of kings blocked their ears?
Shishupal was criticizing.
Yes.
Then some people left the assembly, right?
Yes. You see, some left, some blocked their ears, some drew out their swords, right? So you see all the different ways you can deal with that. So that's some of the ways to deal with aparad. Now, I mentioned previously that for me there's 2 lessons we learned from this particular pastime, and that not committing aparad is one of them, but there's another one. And it's to do with the reason why Amoga was forgiven. Why was he forgiven? Yes. He chanted the holy name. Okay, did he chant the holy name before he was forgiven or after? Yes. He was the son-in-law of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And just from that, there's no credit to Amoga for that. He didn't deserve any credit for that. But it just so happens that because Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is very dear to Lord Chaitanya decides, I'm going to save Amoga, you see. And which is different from other examples in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Generally, the Lord would save someone if they repented and they actually went to that person for forgiveness. Now we have some examples. We have Gopal Chapala. What was his offense? Anyone remember? Yes. So he's trying to give Srivas Thakur a bad reputation, putting the Durga paraphernalia outside his doorstep, which includes wine. Yeah. Now, in this particular example, I mentioned previously how the Lord, he's very merciful. So he was merciful to Amoga, but at the same time, as Krishna, he's given him cholera. So in the same way, Mahaprabhu, he reacts in 2 different ways in connection with Gopal Chapala. On the one hand, Gopal Chapala, he gets leprosy, so his fingers start melting, etc. And all these little insects are crawling on his exposed flesh, and he's in excruciating pain. And he requests Lord Chaitanya to be delivered. But Lord Chaitanya, because he wants to teach us about the terrible offense of Vaishnava aparad, he says, you will not be delivered for 1,000,000 births. And then Mahaprabhu goes off to Jagannath Puri. But when he comes back, Gopal Chapala speaks to him again. And Prabhupada explains that Gopal Chapala, he had one good quality. He was simple, and he had faith that Lord Chaitanya was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So therefore, Lord Chaitanya gave him mercy. And he said to him, yes, you go to Srivas Thakur, and you beg forgiveness. And if he forgives, then you'll be forgiven. And that's exactly what happened, because Srivas Thakur, as Vaishnavas tend to do, was very forgiving. We have the example of Gopal Chakravarti. Now, this is more explained in the Chaitanya Bhagavat. Who can say what his particular offense was? Gopal Chakravarti. Yes, what did he say? He said, Haridas Thakur said, if just by Namabas you become liberated, and Gopal Chakravarti was outraged. He said, if it's not true, I'm going to cut off your nose. And Haridas Thakur says, if it's not true, I'm going to cut off my own nose. And he likewise got leprosy. And I'm not sure if he was forgiven or not. I don't think he was forgiven. Who by? Lord Chaitanya, okay. So he had a very beautiful face, had a beautiful, exquisite nose, and it just started melting with leprosy. So we have all these examples. Now, the question may arise, why is it that the Vaishnava aparadha is more serious than aparadha Krishna? Now, if we think about the pastime where Durvasa Muni tries to kill Ambarish Maharaj, and then the Sudarshan Chakra of Lord Narayan comes to protect Ambarish Maharaj and chases Durvasa Muni. He goes to Lord Brahma, goes to Lord Shiva, finally goes to Lord Vishnu, and he begs for protection. And what does Lord Vishnu say? He said, even I will not protect you because you have offended the devotees. Aham bhakta pradina yasvatantra ivadvaja sadhu bir grasta rirayo bhaktair bhakta jana priya. He says, the devotees have captured my heart. Yeah? Aham bhakta pradina, therefore I am subservient to them. Sadhu bir grasta rirayo. Bhaktair bhakta jana priya. Not just devotees, but the devotees of my devotees are very, very dear to me. And he goes on to say, Sadhava hridayam mayam sadhunam hridayam tvaham madanyad te najananti naham tebyo managapi. The devotees are my heart, and I am the heart of my devotees. They know nothing but me, and I know nothing but them. So that very, very deep relationship that the Lord has with his devotees, it's a loving relationship of full absorption where they know nothing but the Lord and the Lord knows nothing but them. For that reason, if you offend a devotee, you cannot expect to make spiritual advancement. And our spiritual path is all connected. You can't just say, well, I'm chanting nicely, therefore it doesn't matter about apparats. Of course it does matter. It's all connected. If you're not, some people ask, why am I not getting a taste from chanting? And sometimes you say, well, you're not attentive. Sometimes the real reason is because one has committed an aparad, and one does not want to acknowledge that. And one maybe is too proud to apologize, and then that can affect the taste one gets from chanting the holy names. Like so Lord Narayan, he says, Vasi kurvanti mam bhakcha satstriya satpatim yata. Just as the chaste wife controls the husband, in the same way my devotees control me. So it's through the service of the devotees to the Lord, that the Lord is ultimately controlled. So I was in Vrindavan recently. It was so nice that about 1 week after I came back, I was going to say came home, but I'm thinking, no, where's my home? Maybe Vrindavan's my home. It's interesting, Prabhupada, you see him as a Kolkata boy, but he said, Vrindavan's my home. Mayapur is my place of worship. And where's his office? Mumbai or Bombay, yes, okay. Kolkata or Kolkata. Anyway, all the names have changed for the Swaraj. India's renamed its cities according to the proper names. So, and I was in Vrindavan, and I was at the Krishna Balaram Mandir, and I was ambushed by a book distributor. It's actually very nice to get ambushed. He was selling me Govinda Maharaj books. Now actually, technically speaking, the books of Govinda Maharaj weren't actually written by Govinda Maharaj, but what his disciples did, from his teachings, from his lectures, they transcribed them and they edited them and they created these beautiful books. And they're very well written. I love the style of these books. So I was very happy to be ambushed, and I think I got my value. I got more than I paid for. I got something far more priceless than what I paid for. So one of the books I bought, I bought one book. It was a book about Radharani, and it had a lovely analogy in it, and it actually relates to Lord Chaitanya. So I'll share that with you. So Govinda Maharaj explains. He explains something that the acharyas present. So they ask the question, where does sweetness lie? Does sweetness lie in the sugar, or does sweetness lie in the tongue? Who would like to answer? In the tongue? Tongue? Both. This is the answer. Both. Think about it logically. Can sugar taste its own sweetness? No. Can the tongue taste sweetness without sugar? No. But you bring the tongue and the sugar together, and you taste sweetness. By analogy, the sweetness of Radha Krishna pastimes are exactly that, the union of Radha and Krishna. The sweetness of Krishna. I should have said Krishna. The sweetness of Krishna can only be tasted fully in the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. And Radharani, she's the most expert in tasting that sweetness. Shri Radhaya pranaya mahima kidrasho vanayaiva svajo yena bhuta madurima kidrasha vamadiya saukyam chasya madanu bhavataha kidrasham veti lubat tad bhavajya samajani satchigarba sindau harinduhu. The Chaitanya Charitamrita begins with this beautiful verse. To taste or to experience the greatness of Srimati Radharani's love, the wonderful sweetness of Krishna that she alone tastes through that love, and the happiness or saukyam that she experiences on realizing that beautiful sweetness. For those three reasons, Lord Krishna takes birth as from the womb of Mother Sachi, just as the moon rises from the ocean. Now, we don't see that too often in this country, the moon rising from the ocean, but if many of you have been abroad, have you seen how beautiful it is when you see the moon coming at the horizon? Got a large, vast ocean, you see the moon rising. It's very, very beautiful. So when Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda came, Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahodidau, Gaudadai Pushpavantau, Chitrasandau Tamonudau. They are compared to like the sun and the moon. They are rising. This is the Namaskar. The beginning of Chaitanya Charitamrita, it covers three topics. Namaskar, Vastu Nirdesh, and one other one. What's the other one? Ashirvad. Ashirvad means benediction. Sada Hridaya Kandari Spiratava Shachinandana. The benediction is, may the Supreme Lord Satchigarbha manifest in your heart. That's the Ashirvad. And the obeisances, it comes in two types. There is Samanya, general, and Vishesha, specific. So the general offering of obeisances is Vande Gurun, Isha back tongues, Ishanija Vataratam, Tat Prakasham Tat Shaktish, Krishna Chaitanya Samgyakam. We offer the obeisances to the six truths. There's this Chaya Tattva. We talk about Pancha Tattva. If you actually read the Adi Lila, you'll see that there's Chaya Tattva, which means six truths. So the Pancha Tattva are five of those truths, and what is the sixth? Guru, yes. So the first two words of Chaitanya Charitamrita are so important. Vande Gurun. Just think about that. What is the key to make spiritual advancement? That's where it is. It's Vande Gurun. Offer obeisances to the Guru. So these six truths in general, but then Vishesha, the specific obeisances, which is Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahodidau, Gaudadai Pushpavantau, Chitrasandau Tamonudau. This is the second verse. And this is specific. You're actually describing Krishna Chaitanya, and you're describing Lord Nityananda and comparing them to the sun and to the moon. You see? So that's and then Vastu Nirdesh. The next verse is Vastu Nirdesh. Vastu Nirdesh means describing the truth. It's like tattva. And the verse for that is, how does it begin? Yad advaitam brahmopanishadi tadap yasyatanabha ya'at mantaryami purusha iti sosyangshavabhav sadaishvarya purno ya'iha bhagavansa swayam ayam na chaitanyaj krishnaj jagati Paratattvam Paramiha. And the meaning of that is the bodily effulgence of Lord Chaitanya is what is described in the Upanishad as Brahma. The Supersoul, that is the Antaryami. How does it go? Yeah, Atma Antaryami Purusha Iri Sasyam Angsha Vabhav. The Antaryami, or the indwelling Supersoul, is a Angsha of Lord Chaitanya. And he, Lord Chaitanya himself, is Sadaishvarya Purna, Ya Isa Bhagavan Swayamayam. He is none other than Krishna, Swayam Bhagavan. You see? So we understand that we say Krishna is Avatari, but actually Lord Chaitanya is also Avatari because Lord Chaitanya is Krishna. Na Chaitanyad Krishnaj Jagati Paratattvam Paramiha. So there's no higher truth than Krishna, Chaitanya. I'm going to change topic. I'm going to talk about the ecstatic symptoms of amoga. It's in the purport. And Gadgada, which means choking of the voice. Pulaka, which means hair standing on end. These are some of the symptoms that amoga is experiencing. And they are two examples of what's known as sattvika bhavs. Now, there's a lot of mention of ecstatic symptoms throughout Chaitanya Charitamrita. And if you actually read them, if you learn what the sattvika bhavs are, you'll find very often it's the sattvika bhavs that are mentioned. So who knows all 8 of the sattvika bhavs? I've mentioned 2 already. Pulaka, which means the body, hairs in the body stand on end. And then Gadgada means choking of the voice. Anyone remember any other ones? Ashru, crying, yes. You both got that. Changing colour. Stunned, yes. That's stamba. That's Vaivarnya. Say again? That's not one of the Ashtasattvika bhavs. But it's something certainly that Lord Chaitanya that experienced that. Devastation, yes. It's known as pralaya. No. Laughing's, I think that's an anubhav. Or it's one of the sanchari bhavs. Yes, horripilation is mentioned, but shivering is another one. That's 2. Kampa. Have you got all 8? Okay. You notice that Romansha, Kampa, Shru, Taranga, Bhajo, 3 of them are mentioned in the Gurvastikam. So why are they called sattvika bhavs? It's because they arise directly when the life airs are in contact with the various elements. So I'm going to read to you a little section of the Nectar of Devotion, because what happens is you'll see how each of those symptoms is connected to one of the elements. So this is from chapter 8, Nectar of Devotion. The scientific explanation of these 8 symptoms is given by Rupa Goswami as follows. When the vital force of life is in contact with earth, one is stunned. So we think of earth as something very static. So stunned means motionless. That's the connection. When the same force comes in contact with water, there is shedding of tears. When the same force comes in contact with fire, there is perspiration. Of course, we perspire when we are hot. When the force comes in contact with sky, there is devastation. That's akash. When that force comes in contact with the air, there is trembling, failing of the voice, and standing of the hairs on the body. Now, Vaivarnya, or change of complexion, isn't mentioned there, but I did my own research, and it seems to be connected with the air element as well. So these are involuntary. They bypass the intelligence. It's said that some of the other symptoms you can choose, like dancing or rolling in the ground in ecstasy. You can actually intellectually make that decision to do these things. But the sattvika bhavs, they happen regardless. Now, if they're severe, you're completely unable to hide them. Now, it's generally the devotees, they hide their ecstasies because they're humble. They don't want to show off. They don't want to try and make out that they're great. Like that, you see. And I'm going to now talk about one of the most... Yeah? Of the 8? Yeah. Ether was connected with pralaya. I mentioned... I read them out. Devastation. Yeah, trembling, feeling on the voice, standing on the body, here's the body. These three are connected with air. And Vaivarnya, I believe, is connected with air as well. So that's four of them. And then Stamba was the earth. Shedding of the tears, that's the water element. Oh. It's the five gross elements is the connection. It's said when the life here contacts those five gross elements. So it's not an 8 to 8, it's not 1 to 1 like that. I see, okay, yeah. Okay, let's talk about a problem we have, and actually we have this in our society, where there's a dilemma. There is, on the one hand, we should respect advanced devotees, and on the other hand, we should protect devotees from abuse. And if we don't, then we consider that can be Vaishnava Parad. If a senior devotee is abusing someone, generally this controversy happens in connection with senior devotees, because junior devotees, we tend to be better at chastising them. But with senior devotees, it becomes more subtle and it becomes a little bit tricky. So Krishna famously says in the Bhagavad Gita, Api chet sudaracharo bhajati malmananyabhag sadureva samantavya samyag vyavasito hisa. Even if one commits the most abominable activity, if he is fixed in his devotional service, he is considered saintly, yeah, because he's properly situated in his intelligence. Kshikram bhavati dharmatma sashvat chantim nagachati kauntiya pradijanihi name bhakta pranashyati. He quickly becomes righteous and attains to lasting peace. O son of Kunti, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. So we see sometimes in our society, devotees can actually damage their own spiritual life when they criticize someone unfairly. At the same time, devotees can damage the spiritual life when they do not protect devotees. And so we have to walk a tightrope. We have to consider both. And the key to success is we should be very careful to monitor our own feelings, and if we have ill feeling towards devotees, we should eradicate that and see the good in everyone. But at the same time, justice should be done. And in this connection, I'm going to give you two statements from the purport to the Apichet verse, and I think it's very important that we consider these. Here's what Prabhupada says. The words Sadur Eva, he is saintly, are very emphatic. They are a warning to the non-devotees that because of an accidental fall down, a devotee should not be derided. He should still be considered saintly, even if he has accidentally fallen down. And the word mantavya is still more emphatic. If one does not follow this rule and derides a devotee for his accidental fall down, then one is disobeying the order of the Supreme Lord. So we should take this instruction very seriously, because it's for our own benefit. Some people think, if someone complains and they feel they have a legitimate complaint, and maybe they do have a legitimate complaint, if someone then says to them, "Oh, Prabhu, be careful, you might be offensive," there's a tendency for that person to think, you're just saying that because you're trying to avoid this person getting into trouble. And actually that's not fair. You're just using that as an excuse. But that is sometimes true, I will concede. But it's not always the case. And sometimes there are devotees who have genuinely moved on from committing offensive behavior and who are actually very dear to Krishna, and they're on a higher platform. And if we continue to deride such people, I mentioned previously Nagna Matrika Nyaya, naked mother logic, if we continue to see them for what they were, then actually that's detrimental to our own spiritual life, and it's in our own best interest not to do that. However, in the same purport, Prabhupada writes, on the other hand, one should not misunderstand that a devotee in transcendental devotional service can act in all kinds of abominable ways. This verse only refers to an accident due to the strong power of material connections. So this is another important point, that if someone has a habit of committing abominable activity, we're not obliged to turn a blind eye and say, oh, this person's saintly, because it only applies to accidental fall downs. Now, Prabhupada was very, very critical of those who criticized devotees. There's a wonderful example from Bhaktivedanta Manor. This was told by Bhaja Hari Prabhu, the wonderful devotee. I love Bhaja Hari Prabhu. I was doing years of Saturday night Harinam, and at some point he started coming, and he brought this enthusiasm with him. It was incredible, and he wanted to really build the Saturday night Harinam. He made sure the sound system was better. He introduced distribution of lollipops, and he even had a Prabhupada quote to prove that it's okay. You know, mass distribution is a wonderful service because people get prasadam, they make spiritual advancement. But mass prasad distribution usually requires mass cooking, which takes a long time. But there's another way. You can buy lollipops en masse, and if you find a donor to pay for them, then that's what happened. We had all these lollipops. Remember the days of the lollipops? One of the problems we had was people were not chanting so much because the devotees were taking the lollipops. So we're on Harinam, and I was like, oh, come on. Anyway, so Bhaja Hari, he had this look in his eyes. When you were chanting, and he would look at you, you could see that he was just really in the moment, enjoying the bliss. So he was very great. So Bhaja Hari, he tells a story. So there was one temple president of Bhaktivedanta Manor, and he wasn't doing his job so well. So he went to Prabhupada, Bhaja Hari. At that time, he was junior to, I think it was Yogeshwar actually. Was it Yogeshwar? The two of them went together to Prabhupada's room, and they said, there's a problem. Our temple president is not following nicely. He's not chanting his round. And then Prabhupada, stop. And he looked at Yogeshwar, and he said, tell him to get out. He wouldn't even look at Bhaja Hari. He was so angry because he'd come to criticize. Now you think about it, temple president not chanting rounds, that's pretty good reason to complain. But even that reason, that was not what Prabhupada wanted. And he chastised Yogeshwar for criticizing. So that's an interesting pastime. So that illustrates the delicacy or the delicate nature of these offences. Anyway, that's what I wanted to say today. And we have 10 minutes left. So comments and questions, and thank you very much for your patience. And we have the two senior devotees at the back, and then Subhadra. So who's got the mic? Go to Adi Guru. Adi Guru first.
You know about the devotee keeps his devotional service confidential, etc., doesn't display his ecstatic symptoms.
Yes.
So there's that verse in the 11th canto, Ivambratasva Priyanama Kirtya, which describes that when one's transcendental taste of the holy name, he doesn't care for outsiders, he dances and he chants and he kind of contradicts.
Yes.
Resolve that?
Yes, okay. So that's Evamvratasva Priyanamakacha Jatanu Raga Druta Chitta Asachito Roditi Rautigayachun Madhavan Richati Lokabayaha. Now when one becomes, this is actually describing how one attains perfection through the process of sadhana bhakti, Evamvrata. The vrata means the sadhana bhakti vow. One comes to the higher platform and is chanting those names of the Lord that are very dear to that person because he has an actual connection. Then what happens? He laughs, asachati, raudati, cries. Rauti means what? Gets angry, is it? Turns red. Dance. Nrichati, dances. Gayatri sings as well. So on the one hand, I mentioned previously that the devotee keeps his ecstasies to himself, but then there's a contradiction. Sometimes the devotee just doesn't. Lokabayaha means does not care for public opinion. So that person just goes for it, just like dances, cries, ecstasy. I've not read our acharyas give an actual reason for that, but my guess is sometimes in our ecstasies, hopefully, we become forgetful. So there may be a general tendency to keep a low profile, be humble, but sometimes in ecstasy one may forget one's position, one may become less conscious of the external world. Like Prahlad Maharaj, he was so eternally absorbed that all the bodily functions, like going to the toilet, it was all happening automatically, and he was unaware of it. If you become very deeply absorbed, then you're no longer aware that there's other people around, and therefore you don't feel the need to be humble. You just kind of get carried away by the ecstasy. As I'm so excited, and I just can't hide it. I'm about to lose control, and I think I like it. Right? So it's just like that. Is that okay? Thank you.
It's an analogy.
Analogy, yes.
Govinda Swami, he called it the banyan tree. And it talks about the relationship between Radharani or Sakis and her gopis,
Yes.
but also the relationship between the spiritual master and the disciples. The banyan tree is basically Radharani. The spiritual master is also a banyan tree.
Mm-hmm.
But the disciples of the spiritual master, they're like the Sakis. They support the spiritual master.
Mm-hmm.
They act as a sort of a responsible root of the thing. But likewise, the Sakis, the gopis that support Radharani, they are acting in the same way. The banyan tree is Radharani. The spiritual master is the banyan tree.
Mm-hmm.
But they depend on their disciples and their Sakis in their love relationship of love.
Thank you. Perfection of being a disciple, to support the ecstasies of the spiritual master and the service of the spiritual master.
Okay, I wanted to ask a question about how do we deal with criticism, because sometimes it's like a senior devotee and they want to warn us against a devotee who they think is in bad standing. So it seems like it would be